I'm Shivam Bansal, the world record holder in MBLD, and you're listening to the Corner Cutter podcast.
Hey, welcome to the Corner Cutter podcast. Podcasting since 2014, I'm your host Josh, and this is the most consistent cubing podcast dedicated to entertain and educate you with in-depth conversations with cubers from all across the sport. My website is thecornercutterpodcast.com, and thank you so much for joining me today. If you have any feedback, please feel free to shoot me an email, feedback@thecornercutterpodcast.com. I would love to hear from you. Today's interview is with Shivam Bansal. He recently broke the multi-blind world record. It was amazing. He got 48 out of 48 cubes. You definitely have to go check out the video. I will have the video in the show notes to this episode, thecornercutterpodcast.com. So I won't make you wait any longer. Let's jump right into the interview. Okay, now I have Shivam Bansal on the podcast. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having. It's really fun to do a podcast always, especially with you. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yes, first off, congratulations on setting the multi-blind world record. 48 out of 48 cubes is amazing.
Thank you so much. I'm really happy I finally did it after trying so hard for so many years.
So one of the funny things about this interview is I contacted you about a month ago asking if you were interested in coming on the podcast, and
Yep.
Then I emailed you a couple days before you broke the world record, asking when would be a good time, and then you got the world record, so it was perfect timing.
Yeah, it's really good.
So why don't we jump right into the first question? What were your expectations for this competition? And this was Delhi Monsoon Open 2018?
Yeah. So I have, from this year starting, I've been really trying to get the world record because I've been averaging around 46 to 48 cubes in an hour at home. But officially, my last few competitions, I've gotten pretty close. I missed world record by 1 cube in February, then 1 cube again in a competition in May. So every comp with MBLD I went to, I was just hoping to somehow get it. But still, I wasn't expecting it to get it by 6 points. I was just expecting maybe to tie it and then improve it slightly on time. So from this competition, I was just hoping to get the world record. And even if I didn't, I'm actually attending to another competition this weekend. So I'll have MBLD at that also. So my plan was to go to both competitions. So even if I miss world record at the first one, I'll have another chance in the second one. So now the second one is just like a fun thing for me because I already have it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Does that help you at all? Maybe that you have an extra chance?
Yeah, actually, 48 out of 48 is really good for me even at home because I've done 48 out of 48 twice at home before in a slightly faster time. So this was overall my third best attempt. So there's a small chance that I might do my second best or best attempt in comp, but still it's a little tough to break it now even for me, but I'll try to improve in the next few months and maybe start consistently doing 50 plus cubes at home, so I might have a chance to break it again.
Wow, okay, so let's talk about this competition. What went on before you did your multi-blind attempt? Do you have some sort of routine, and then how were the scrambles?
Yeah, this comp name was Delhi Monsoon Open, and monsoon is basically the rainy season of India, which happens in around July time. So during the drive to the venue, it was raining really heavily, and when I was about to enter the venue, I got a bit wet because it was raining. I didn't have an umbrella, so the MBLD was a bit early in the morning. It was not that early. It was around 10 a.m. So whenever there's a MBLD comp, I always get a lot of nervousness. So I got around 6.5 hours of sleep because I'd set the alarm at 8 a.m. but I woke up myself at 7 a.m. due to nervousness. So sleep is actually a bit important because the mind needs to concentrate for the whole hour. So during the attempt, I was just my pre-attempt routine is usually I just sit down, close my eyes, and just breathe calmly for a few minutes and try to clear my head of all distractions. And I just mentally go through all my rooms and review them quickly, and then I just start the attempt. So during the attempt, the scrambles were actually pretty average. Actually, it's an advantage of MBLD that you never get very easy or very difficult scrambles. Because if 10 scrambles are easy than usual, then 10 scrambles will be difficult than usual. So scrambles are usually not that of a variable in MBLD. So scrambles were actually maybe slightly better than average because I did have a few easy cubes in there. But yeah, scrambles were pretty normal.
What's the feeling when you lift off your blindfold?
Actually, it's quite interesting because in this attempt, usually in official attempts, I can get a pretty good idea of how the attempt is going. So when I'm about to finish, I usually know if I have 1 or 2 DNFs or if I have 5 or 6 DNFs. So I knew I needed 3 DNFs maximum for world record. But in this attempt, it's quite surprising that I felt I did many mistakes. Like at least 5 or 6 cubes I felt I DNF'd. So
wow.
Usually towards the end of official multi-blind, where I think I could get world record, my hands are shaking and I'm very nervous. But this time I wasn't nervous at all because I knew that it won't be that good of an attempt. So I was just casually solving. And then when I stopped the timer and I lifted the blindfold, everyone started cheering really loudly. So I thought I was in shock for a moment because I thought, how is this possible that I felt doing many mistakes and still every cube is solved? And when people started cheering, I thought that maybe I got like 45 out of 48 or something and I just got the world record. But then someone said that 48 out of 48 and I thought, and I was just stunned and I just couldn't, it took me a few hours to process what had happened. Yeah, so it was an incredible feeling.
Yeah, congrats.
Yeah, thanks.
How often do you get the same number, 40, like 48 out of 48? Is that pretty rare?
Yeah, I've done it twice before at home. So, so at home my PB was 48 out of 48 in 58 minutes and 39 seconds, and I have another 48 out of 48 in 58 minutes 44 seconds. So this one was 1 minute slower, but still ties my PB on points. So I've never solved more than 48 cubes ever, and I did it in comp, which is like, it's kind of like tying your 3x3 official single, 3x3 home single in comp, almost same, which is really good.
Yeah, I was looking over the previous multi-blind records or same number of attempts. The only other ones, or big ones, were 41 out of 41 and I think 30 out of 30. So that's very impressive. How do you decide on the number of cubes to do?
So I like since I've started doing MBLD in the last 1 or 2 years, I always had a record in mind that I wanted to break. So earlier it was the national record, which was 15 out of 15 in 2015. So I was just trying like 16 or 17 cubes to break that. Then slowly I started to try for Asian record, then world record. So for world record was kind of a constant for 5 years. So it was 41 points. So and 41 points it was in 54 minutes. So the only option to break it was to get 42 points. So I used to do 42 cubes a lot at home, just in hope of getting 42 out of 42. And then when I just calculated the world record based on that. So recently Mark got the new world record, 43 out of 44. in 60 minutes. So because it was 42 points in 60 minutes, so I didn't have to attempt an odd number of cubes. Because if I got 45 out of 48, even 1 second faster than him, then it would be world record. So I just decided on 48 because 46 means I can DNF only 2 cubes, 48 means I can DNF 3 cubes, and for 50 I can DNF 4 cubes, but 50 is a bit tough to get inside 1 hour and be accurate also. So 48 was currently in the last few months the best number for me.
Okay. Is doing an even or odd number of cubes affect you solving it in any way? Like, is it harder to memorize?
It's not harder actually. It depends on the ending. Like, I memorize 40 cubes in long term and then last 8 cubes in short term. So it's like I do a 40 cube multi-blind and then I do a quick 8 cube multi-blind at the end and solve them first. So if I attempt 49 cubes, then I'll do a 9 cube multi-blind at the end. So if for my memo method, it doesn't affect really if it's odd or even. But I know like some people like Kamil Perzybliski, who's from Poland, he doesn't do odd number because he memorizes cubes in pairs. So it's a bit tough for him to do odd number. So he always does even mostly. Yeah, but he can do odd also. I think he told me some trick. But yeah, I think odd or even doesn't matter that much. But I just choose it in relation to what the world record is currently. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for explaining that.
Yeah.
What cubes do you use and are they magnetic?
No, they're not magnetic. I use the Volk 3 version 1s, which I got last year. Actually, there's a funny thing with magnetic cubes. Actually, Mark Bonsky got magnetic cubes from MBLD recently. But when you group lots of magnetic cubes together on the table, so the magnets repel each other, so the cubes shift and move on their own. So it's quite tough to do MBLD on magnetic cubes. That's why I recently ordered new cubes, Volk Power, and I just got them 2 days before the comp, but I didn't use them at the comp because I thought I should be used to them at home first. So I used black base Volk version 1s, and I also used them last year to break my first Asian record and at Worlds also. So I think they've really done well for me, those cubes.
Okay. So the big question, like especially a ton of non-cubers have is how do you memorize that many? How do you fit that all in your brain without losing it somewhere?
I think a lot of people underestimate the power of like normal brain. Like people study for tests and exams, and they can memorize a lot of information, like even more than in one MBLD attempt. But they think that like if I memorize a lot of cube, they might think that I have really good memory, but actually most people with enough practice can memorize a large amount of information, because it's just there are some techniques which you use to encode that information into your long-term memory. So if you read a phone number of a paper, then it will be in your short-term memory. But if you find a way to convert that phone number into an image or a story that you can remember, then you'll be more likely to remember it 30 minutes later also. So it's just practicing methods to encode information efficiently and fast into Roman rooms. So Roman rooms is the most commonly used method for MBLD. It's you must be knowing, it's basically imagining your memo happening in rooms, like rooms you're familiar with, like your bedroom or your kitchen. And I use one room to memorize one cube, so I have around 50 rooms. And I use letter pairs to memorize, and each pair is a word for me. So CT is cat, for example, and BL is ball. So if my memo is CTBL, so I might imagine a cat is playing with a ball in my kitchen. So that will be a vivid memory, and I'll be able to memorize it very fast. So basically that's the basic concept, and just lot of practice and trying to optimize it for speed and accuracy, and just memorizing, and lot of practice, of course.
Yeah. Do you ever, like, in the middle of attempt, forget a certain room, or like?
Yeah, sometimes I just blank out on one cube Like I imagine the location and I just can't remember the memo that I put there. So it's basically either because I didn't memorize it properly and it wasn't vivid enough for me to remember, or I just memorized it too quickly and it didn't stick in my brain well. And maybe it also means that the location isn't that memorizable for me. So I might do something to improve that location, like add some new element to that to remember it.
Okay. Do you do the same order of rooms every time? So
Yeah, I do the same order of rooms, but I don't execute in the order I memorize. So I memorize cubes 1 to 40 in order, and then 41 to 48. Then I execute the cubes 41 to 48. Then I memorize cubes in packs of 8. So for 40 cubes I have 5 packs of 8. So I memorize the fifth pack last out of all them, but I solve the fifth pack first. So I solve the packs in reverse order. So that means that the last few packs I don't memorize that well, but so I don't need to spend that much time on them, and I still remember them. And the first few packs I need to remember for a longer time, but because I have the most experience with those packs, because I've been using them since I did like 16 cubes only, so they are a bit better, so I can memorize for longer time in those packs.
okay. Do you use the same memorizing method, or solving method, when you're doing just regular 3-blind?
Yeah, I use three style commutators for both 3BLD and MBLD. Although sometimes there are some algs which are a bit risky, like bit finger tricky, so they are faster to execute, but they are a bit risky. So in MBLD, sometimes I use a slightly slower alg that I have a more chance of not messing up. And because in 3-blind, even if you DNF a solve, it's okay. But in MBLD, if you try to do a faster alg in DNF, then it'll like ruin like 2 points for you in the whole attempt. So sometimes I don't use that good algs for MBLD, but I'm trying to switch that habit and trying to use the best algs.
Okay. Here's just a fun question. How fast can you do 2 out of 2 cubes?
I haven't actually tried that in a while, but my personal best is 1 minute 3 seconds
Okay.
for 2 out of 2 with around 20-second memorization. But I think it's actually 2 out of 2 cubes mostly depends on your 3x3 blindfolded speed, because there's not much room for multi-blind techniques in that. So it's basically how fast you can do 3x3 blindfolded twice, because retaining memo for 1 minute rather than 30 seconds isn't that tough. So now I'm slightly faster in 3x3 blindfolded, so I think if I really try, I could do it in sub 1. Actually, like people like really fast in 3BLD can do it in sub 50 also. But yeah, it's I can average around 1 minute 10 seconds in 2 cubes.
Okay. So could you dive into how scoring works with the WCA, and then right after we'll get to if you think it's fair or not, and if you have thought about any better ways to score cubes, but just talk about how scoring works first.
So MBLD scoring is a bit different than other events. So you basically submit a number that you're going to attempt, say 40 cubes, and then you solve a certain amount of them. So say you solve 35 out of 40. So you have 5 unsolved cubes. So 5 will be subtracted from the number of solved cubes, which is 35. So 35 minus 5 equal to 30. So 35 out of 40 will give 30 points. And basically MBLD is ranked only by points. So the more points is obviously better. And if the points are same, like if 2 people get 30 points, then the tiebreaker will be time. So whoever has the fastest time will win. And in a lot of people don't know that in rare cases, if time is also same and points is also same, then the lesser amount of DNFs wins. So for example, if someone does 42 out of 42 in 1 hour and someone does a 43 out of 44 in 1 hour, so even though both have 42 points and both have 1 hour time, the 42 out of 42 guy has 1 less DNF. So he'll get the world record and the other guy won't get it. So actually this is a thing that I had to be careful of while attempting 48 cubes, because since the world record is 43 out of 44 in 1 hour, And if I was doing, say I was doing 45 out of 48, and I was on the last cube and the time ran out. So I would be stopped at 1 hour and my time would be 45 out of 48 in 1 hour. So even though I would have tied the WR exactly in both time and points, I still wouldn't get it. So actually, I was a bit nervous about doing that, because I was thinking if I attempt an odd number, then I won't have this problem, but then I'll have to do an extra cube. So I just took a slight risk. But I think this scoring method is okay because it rewards both accuracy and speed. So one type to score I've thought about in the past is just counting solved cubes and not worrying about unsolved cubes. So say someone does 50 out of 60 and one other person does 48 out of 48. So if you only count solved cubes, then one person solved 50 cubes, but he DNF 10 also, and other person solved 48 cubes. So I think the current way is still a little bit better, because in MBLD, solving lots of cubes is important, but having a good accuracy and solving as many cubes as you can out of the ones you attempt is more important. So I think it's quite a good system to rank MBLD.
Okay, so before we move on to how multiplied became your favorite event, how did you get introduced to the Rubik's Cube?
When I was 10 years old, and my family took a vacation to Dubai, so I was in a Toys R Us in Dubai, and I was at the checkout counter, and my mother saw the Rubik's cubes like beside the billing counter, and she said she'll buy one for me. So I had played with Rubik's cubes before, when I was very young, but I didn't think much of it at the time. So when I bought that cube, I got home and I searched a tutorial on how to solve it when I couldn't do it on my own. So I came across Dan Brown's tutorial of how to solve a Rubik's cube with beginner method. So I started to learn from it. But I could make the first side also, but I didn't permute it correctly. So often I won't be able to solve it fully. But then I figured out my mistake, and I could solve it by seeing the video, like using the algorithms he told. Then I memorized the algorithms and started to do it without the video. And then I just did beginner method for a few months and just had some fun with it. And then I just lost interest in cubing because I was just doing beginner method and wasn't aware of the community that much. So I just stopped cubing for around 2 years after that. I averaged around 50 seconds during that time. Then in 2013, one of my relatives came and I wanted to show them that I could solve a cube. So I just dug out my cube from my old drawer and I showed them that I could solve it in 50 seconds. Then while the cube was out, I was thinking that I knew that there's a faster method to do it, which was CFOP. So now that I had the cube out, I just searched how to solve with CFOP method, Friedrich method. So I just learned that, and then I really got it into, and since then I haven't left cubing. I've been really into. So after learning CFOP method, within a few months I learned many other events, and I learned blindfolded also by December. And then I went to a competition and I did 14 events in that. And then I just kept going and found it really fun.
So when did you start really getting into multi-blind? What year was that?
So actually, when I started, I really liked the 3x3 blindfolded event in 2014. So basically, I started competing in 2014. So I did 3BLD and I got official success on my first ever attempt. It was 6 minutes, and I tried multi-blind also at that competition, but I hadn't done it at home before, so I got 0 out of 2 cubes. So then I but it was still fun. Then I just experimented a bit, and I improved around a few minutes in 3x3 blindfolded, and I tried, and I got 3 out of 3 multi-blind at home, which was quite impressive for me. And then I looked at Noah Arthur's tutorial, which was how to memorize using Roman rooms. So before then, for 3 out of 3, I just memorized it without any method. So I just watched the video where he said how to memorize and how to put information in rooms. So I just randomly took 6 cubes and tried that on the same day, and I got 5 out of 6 in 40 minutes. So I was really amazed because I thought like going straight from 3 cubes to 5 out of 6 was mind blowing for me. So that was the time I thought that MBLD isn't that tough. And then the next day I did 8 out of 9 cubes. And the Indian NR at the time was 11 out of 11. So I just did around 10 cubes to 12 cubes for the 2014 year. And but I didn't have Pyraminx. I had Pyraminx as my main event at the time, and I broke a few NRs in that. And MBLD was just a side event for me. And then next year I got 17 out of 18 in MBLD just by randomly practicing a bit. And then because I had gotten closer to NR, I had started practicing it more. So after I got the MBLD NR, I just started practicing a little more, and I think it became like one of my top 2 or 3 events. But then in 2016, I got 22 out of 25. So, and that was ranked 19th in the world. So that was when I really thought that MBLD was clearly my best event now. And I actually started finding it more fun because I made a new letter pair list. So I improved all my letter pair words, and it became much easier for me to memorize. So then I think the whole 2016 could be like called the year of the MBLD for me, because I went from 20 cubes to 40 cubes in 1 year, and I broke I think 6 or 7 national records in MBLD, and I really like did a lot. And that was the year I started not doing MBLD like once in 2 weeks, but rather thrice in 1 week. And I really stepped up my practice, and by the end of the year I was ranked 5th in the world. So that's when I knew that I was really close to the Asian record. And I had this like small like crazy dream in my head that I could get world record someday, but it seemed so tough. It was like 40 plus cubes, and I could do 30 cubes, but not with that good accuracy. So I just started doing MBLD seriously, and then I just kept going, and then I started trying for the world record because I thought that I can actually get it. But then it took me lots of near misses and like lots of hours of my life to get it finally. So it was really good.
Mm-hmm. That's a really cool story. You mentioned that Pyraminx was your main event back in 2014. It is currently my main event. And
nice.
We have very similar official averages. So
what's your average?
It's 3.39, so I just beat you.
Oh, nice. But my single is, I think, better. It's 1.43.
Yes, that is amazing. Could you tell us about that at Worlds?
Yeah, actually, my previous best was 2.18, and when I got that scramble, it was I think a 8 mover. It was one move and 7 moves and 1 tape. So, but it was a bit awkward to fingertick, so I one-looked the solve, but I didn't think it would be that good. So usually when I get some easy scramble in an event, I get really nervous to execute it. But this time, because I thought it would be like a low 2-second solve, I didn't get nervous at all. So I just casually did it, and I wasn't even sure if I had one-looked correctly or not, and I just stopped the time and I saw 1.43. So it was a real mix of happiness and sadness for me. You know why? Because the Asian record single was 1.42, and I had gotten 1.43. So I almost missed getting a second Asian record in Pyraminx, which I didn't practice at the time. But it was still really good because I didn't practice and I averaged like 3 to 4 seconds. So 1.43 in comp was really good. And it was the fastest solves at World Championship out of 500 people who took part in Pyraminx. So that was a cool record to have.
Oh, good. Yeah, speaking of Worlds 2017, how did you do in multi-blind?
Yeah, so when I went to World Championship in 2015, I got 6th or 7th place in MBLD. And I was just hoping to podium there, but I missed it by a couple of cubes. And the winning attempt at that Worlds was 17 out of 18. 18 out of 19, sorry. So at this Worlds, a lot of good MBLDers were coming. So I was just, but I had also gotten a bit good. So I was just hoping to podium because World Championship podium is really quite a big thing for me. So I just registered for Worlds, and then a few months later, like Moscow, the world record holder, he said he's coming. So I was actually I was like now first place is gone and I'll just try for second or third place. And then a lot of top MBLDers were coming, like Kamil and Mark and others also. So I was just thinking that maybe if I get lucky I could podium. So when I went to Worlds, I got first attempt I got 37 out of 42, which put me in second place after first attempt. And Moscow, I think he messed up his attempt a bit. He got 32 out of 46 or something. So, and then second attempt, Moscow got 41 out of 46 and he got in first place. So I thought that since Moscow will improve his result in third attempt also, so I was just targeting second place. I was just calculating how much do I need to get second. So after the third attempt, I got 37 out of 40, which in 59 minutes and 12 seconds. So Moscow had 40 out of 46 in 59 minutes 27 seconds. So we both had 34 points, but my time was 15 seconds faster. And Moscow didn't improve his result in the third attempt. So when I just stopped my attempt, my judge said, "You're first." And I was really shocked. I was like, how am I first? And then I realized I won by 15 seconds and I was a world champion. So that was like a real highlight of last year for me. And it was, I think, almost as big of happiness for me as getting the world record was, because I had gone so far from home and I was just hoping to somehow sneak in a podium and winning first place was actually, I hadn't even thought that I could do it. So it was really, really nice. It was also nice to get on the world record podium. It was the best podium ever in a multi-blind comp. And also 2015 World Championship had 18 out of 19 winning, which was 17 points. And the next Worlds had 34 points winning. So we exactly doubled the amount of cubes in 2 years. So that was interesting too.
So now, what is your best attempt at home? How many cubes have you attempted?
So my PB, like by the WCS scoring system, is 48 or 48 twice, and officially also. But the most cubes I've ever attempted at home were 60 cubes, and I got 43 out of 60 in 1 hour 31 minutes. So it was quite a bit above the hour, but it was still fun. Actually, I've been intending to attempt 100 cubes at home for a long time, like just for fun. Like even if it takes 3 hours or 4 hours, it will be like fun to upload a video of it. And you must have seen Moscow. He has done 125 out of 150 at home in 9 hours, which is insane. He sat for 9 hours for an MBLD attempt, which is like I can't even concentrate on one thing for 2 hours, later on 9 hours. But still, so I'm thinking that after, like, I have Asian Championships coming up in the next month. So after that, I'll maybe try to sub-bar consistently 50 plus cubes. So currently, I have done 52 cubes in 58 minutes once. But usually, I'm around, the max number of cubes I can do in an hour is around 50 only. So I'll after next month I'll try to get 55-ish range sub-hour, and then maybe 60 eventually if I really improve.
Yeah. So what do you think the limit is for official time, or official solves?
So I don't think that WCA will change the time limit. So it will be 1 hour only probably, because it's I think quite long enough. So I think that multi-blind is actually quite different from other events in the sense that all other events are trending towards 0. So the world record of every event is decreasing towards 0. And in MBLD, it's increasing towards infinity. So I think it's like theoretically the only event where there's no world record limit. But I think realistically, 60 cubes should be possible within the next few years. And I think eventually, if cubing goes on and dedicated people keep trying, then I think 100 cubes should be possible within the next 10 to 15 years. Because I think that sometimes world record seems quite ridiculous, and then 5 years later they get broken by even a more amount. So there's a thread on Speed Falling Forum which is predict the world record in 10 years in 2020, and it was posted in 2010, and people were posting records like sub 6 second 3x3 single in 2020, or like sub 3 minute 7x7 single in 2020, and like stuff like that, which is like it's laughable now because we broke it by so much. So like 100 cubes might seem like it can't be done by today's method or by today's hardware, or today's people aren't that good that they could do 100 cubes. But I think eventually once enough people try and once enough people increase their number, I think 100 cubes will be possible eventually. And I think 60 to 70 is really, really likely within the next decade.
Yeah. I might have to do a show on that, what expectations for 2020. So
Yeah.
that would be fun to read some of those posts.
Yeah.
Now, how many attempts do you do per day? Like, what is possible before you, like, can't do it anymore? Your brain's just too tired.
I think even doing one attempt per day is too much for me. So my target is doing one attempt every 2 days. So I do an attempt a day, then I have a rest day, then I do again. So sometimes I like get busy or I don't feel like it, so I don't do. But like within the last 1 month, so last 30 days, I think I've done 13 attempts. So it's almost one in every 2 days. But so that there's two reasons for that. The first reason is that because I memorize in long term, even after 2 days, sometimes I remember the previous memo and I have to reuse the same locations. So if I do an attempt every day, then I'll remember the yesterday's memo clearly. So in 2 days, I sort of forget it enough to be able to do it again. And the second thing is it's a bit resting for your mind, and it's actually mentally intensive. So it's, I think, slightly better for me to have a rest day. So you might have seen like in World Championship, there were 3 attempts in 3 days. But I did only 4 cubes in the second attempt. Like all the top class MBLDers, they all did like 30-40 cubes. Like because they thought that it will give them a better chance to get a good result. But I intentionally didn't do a big number on the second attempt because I knew that if I do a big number on the second attempt, then I'll mess up second attempt also, and I'll in turn mess up third attempt also because I'll have to do 3 in 3 days. So because of not doing a big attempt on second day, I could do better on the third day and improve my result. So I think that rest is also important as much as practice.
Yep, I agree. Now, do you actually enjoy doing a multi-blind attempt, and what part do you hate the most?
I think it depends. Like sometimes just before an attempt, I feel a bit daunted. Like I feel, oh, now if I start this timer, I'll have to concentrate for the whole hour and I can't do anything else. So sometimes it's like that. But sometimes I feel an inner urge to do it because I think it's really fun to have a result at end. So I think the most the part that I think that sometimes during memo it feels like a bit too slow, and I just want to get to the execution stage because I think execution is more fun for me because you're actually solving something and it's a bit calmer. In memorization, your brain is too active because you have to encode new information. In execution, it's like smooth sailing. Yeah, you just keep turning the cubes and like keep solving them, and you also know that you're getting closer to the end. But I think memorization is more important than execution in MBLD because execution, a lot of people have good, but memorization is the real key to improving.
Okay, so if someone wants to get into multi-blind or just blind solving in general, what are the steps you think they should take?
So I think like the key to getting into anything is to just do it. Like sometimes people might say, what is the best method, what is the best tutorial, or should I wait until I'm this speed in this event before I start this event? So I think the key is just to do it. Like just sit down with a tutorial, or if you already know how to solve a 3x3 blindfolded, then sit down with 2 cubes and just start memorizing them. Because I think learning by experience is the best. So just like there are plenty of tutorials on YouTube on both on journey method for MBLD and on regular 3BLD. So I think just learning 3BLD and getting comfortable with it is important. And actually the key is putting in some hours, because if you don't put in the time, then it's tough to expect that you'll get instant success. But if you put in some time, then the success is always guaranteed.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, only 2 more questions. Do you have any comments on Worlds 2019? Any idea of where you think it might be?
So I think it might be in China, because in 2016 I went to Asian Championship, which was in China, and it was the biggest competition ever, because they had 900 people and they handled it pretty well, and they had quite a big venue and stuff. So I think they'll have the most experience of organizing really big competitions in China. But I also think it might be Australia, because it's never happened in Australia before. So it might be more fun for other people to visit Australia. So I think, and Belarus also, but I think it might not be there because it's in Europe only. So I hope it'll be in either China or Australia. But I'll hope to go wherever it happens. Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Okay, final question. What's something you've changed your mind about recently?
So I think I don't really have like any specific thing, but maybe a small thing is that I used to not practice execution in MBLD that much. So I was good at memo, but execution was always slower for me compared to memo. Like even right now, people whose memo is slower than me have faster execution than me, because I don't practice 3x3 blindfolded that much. So I've started to change that, and I've started to learn more 3-style algs and beta algs to improve my execution also, because memo is MBLD is maybe 60% memo but 40% execution also. So if you improve both parts, then MBLD will be much easier to improve. So I think that improving both memo and execution is really important for doing well.
Okay. Well, Shivam, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the podcast, and congrats again for getting the multi-blind world record.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was really an awesome thing. Thanks for having me.
Wow, I learned so much from talking to Shivam, and I know you learned a lot as well. I want to thank Shivam again for taking the time to come on the podcast, and he is actually, well, he probably will be the record for farthest distance around the world. We can't get much farther than Eastern US and India, so that was pretty cool. And it actually wasn't too hard to set up a time, like figuring out our time zones to do it. So it was pretty easy there. Please spread the word about the Corner Cutter podcast. Try to share it with one person this week and get them to subscribe. So now it's time to take this episode back to the scrambling table, and I'll talk to you guys again next week in episode 46 of the Corner Cutter podcast. Hey, episode 50 is coming right up. I'm going to have to start planning for that. This is exciting. Thanks for listening.